Hey there guys, so I thought I'd just do two quick post-fight reviews for the Leigh versus Mauricio Lara rematch and the Okolie versus Chris Billam Smith fight. So I'm going to start with the Leigh versus Mauricio Lara fight. So going into this fight, anyone who watched my prediction video will know that I favoured Leigh for the win. I said Leigh would win by a late stoppage, and obviously he didn't get the late stoppage in this fight, but he controlled it from start to finish. Obviously dropped Mauricio Lara with a good right uppercut in the second round. He was piecing Lara up all night, and you can make an argument that he won every single round. Maybe some here and there were close, but there's no debate on who won the fight. Leigh dominated Mauricio Lara from start to finish. And it really wasn't surprising to me, at least. Obviously, Leigh in the first fight, he dominated that fight as well. He won 5 out of the 6 rounds comfortably. He was keeping Lara at range. He was using his paw and jab well to just maintain the distance. He was busting Mauricio Lara up with power shots. The right hand was working. And Lara is he's very limited defensively, so obviously Leigh was never going to have any problems landing, and he pretty much landed at will. And it was much of the same in this fight. Leigh he changed his tactics a bit. He used his feet a lot more. He didn't stand in range of Mauricio Lara. He just tried to box him this time instead of trying to knock him out like he did in the first fight. And he did other small adjustments, like he went southpaw a few times, and he really stayed defensively sound in this fight. He kept his right glove up at all times, just to avoid that left hook that took him out in the first fight. And I thought it was a great performance from Leigh. He did everything he needed to. Nullified Lara completely, and he did everything he should against a guy like Lara. So after the fight, obviously people have been picking out the fact that Lara was so-called weight drained, and he wasn't 100%, and that's why he got schooled, and he looked poor in the fight. Mauricio Lara wasn't weight trained. He came in at 129.8 pounds, which is the same as what Joe Cordina weighed in when he weighed in for the Rakimov weigh-in. Lara didn't have to make the featherweight limit. He came in as heavy as he wanted. He was a super featherweight at the weigh-in, and there was no rehydration clause in place. From what I've heard from Ben Davison and Eddie Hearn, there was no rehydration clause. They just waited to see how Lara's weight was in the morning and see if they were happy to proceed with the fight in case he had, blown up in weight and he was much heavier. But they were happy with it and they went through the fight. So Lara wasn't weight drained. He was just, he had more success in the first fight because Leigh was holding his feet and he was more there to be hit. In the second fight, obviously Leigh was just using his feet very well. He was boxing, and Lara couldn't get close to him. He barely had any success in the fight at all. Didn't hurt him once, and yeah, he just got schooled for 12 rounds. And it's not a weight thing. It's just because Leigh did what he needed to. Mauricio Lara is a very limited fighter. If he can't land that one big power shot that knocks you out, or you don't stand and trade with him like Josh Warrington did in the first fight, he hasn't got a clue on how to beat you. If you use good lateral movement, you use your feet well, and you just keep him at range, he hasn't got a clue. He doesn't know what to do because he's so limited. He's got no boxing skill whatsoever, and all he can do is swing wide punches. That's it, and that's the only reason why he looked poor in this fight. I don't think he was necessarily weight drained or anything like that. And yeah, he got dropped by a right uppercut in this fight, but he was hurt in the first fight as well. He was hurt twice to the body in the first fight. And it's not like Lara's invincible to head punches. I mean, Emilio Sanchez rocked him very hard in that fight before he knocked him out. So I don't really think there was much of a weight problem, if at all, to be honest. And if there's anyone who struggled, to make the featherweight limit, it was Leigh Wood, because Mauricio Lara didn't even try to make the featherweight limit because the boxing board of control didn't let him. So yeah, great performance from Leigh Wood. Did what he needed to, and hopefully he goes on to fight either Josh Warrington or Bernardo Lopez next. So moving on to the Lawrence Okolie versus Chris Billam-Smith fight. Where do I start? I mean, every time I watch a Lawrence Okolie fight, I'm thinking, this is one of the worst fights I've ever seen. But then the problem is, you look back and you think of the Lawrence Okolie fights you've seen. The Matty Askin fight, Isaac Chamberlain, the David Light fight. I mean, Lawrence Okolie's fights, you ask anyone to make a top 10 of the worst fights they've ever seen, Lawrence Okolie will be in there about 4 or 5 times. And to be honest, I think this could be his worst performance yet. Because as soon as the fight started, he was holding, and this is not just, your average clinch, just breaking up the action. This is jumping into range, not throwing punches, holding. And obviously Chris Billam-Smith wasn't able to have much success in the first 3 rounds because Lawrence Okolie was holding him constantly. And obviously it's very hard to have any sort of success when your rhythm's being constantly broken up by someone holding all the time. And Okolie, he was holding so much. It was reminiscent of some of Andre Ward's fights, or Jack Catterall versus Josh Taylor. So just holding non-stop. And Chris Billam-Smith caught Lawrence Okolie in the 4th round with a left hook, put him down. Wasn't able to stop him because Okolie was holding, as always. In the 5th, Okolie had a point deducted for holding. First time in his career. Is it? No. He got points deducted for Matty Askin, didn't he? So, and Lawrence Okolie had another point deducted. And in the 10th and 11th, he went down twice, but I don't think the knockdown in the 10th was actually a knockdown. He sort of hit his shoulder, and the ref called it a knockdown. But regardless, I'm happy to see Lawrence Okolie lose. And thankfully, Chris Billam-Smith was fighting in his hometown, where he had political protection, because he's also with Boxer. If Chris Billam-Smith was just some, some Czechoslovakian guy, Czech Republic guy coming over to fight Lawrence Okolie for the world title, he wouldn't have had points deducted then, and it would have been one of the worst fights you've ever seen, just like the David Light fight. So yeah, I'm glad Chris Billam-Smith won. Billam-Smith, I don't think he looked that impressive in the fight. He didn't really throw that many punches, to be honest. I mean, Okolie was the one who was throwing all the punches, it looked like to me, before he jumped into a clinch. And apart from the 4th round, Billam-Smith really didn't open up that much at all. And yeah, I didn't think he looked great. Going into the rematch, I don't know who wins the rematch, to be honest. I think if Lawrence Okolie actually tries to fight, instead of just punch, hold, punch, hold, punch, hold, he could probably actually win the rematch. Because, he did have success when he let his hands go against Billam-Smith, but Okolie's not really that type of fighter who will actually try and fight. He just tries to hold, and yeah, he should be banned from boxing, to be honest, because his style is absolutely disgusting, and all it does is constantly foul. But yeah, I'm glad Chris Billam-Smith won, and I'll do a video tomorrow about the Michael Conlan versus Bernardo Lopez fight. I'm going to do a video on Adam Booth and how he's the worst trainer in the entirety of British boxing. So yeah, thanks for watching, and God bless.